You felt it this morning. That tiny jolt when a car horn went off behind you. Your heart lurched. Your shoulders snapped up. Your eyes went wide before you even knew why. It was over in less than a second. And then you stood there on the sidewalk, slightly embarrassed, pretending nothing happened. But something did happen. Something ancient. Something your nervous system does not know how to turn off. Because for most of the time your species has existed, that reaction was not an overreaction. It was survival. Your brain still thinks you are being hunted, not metaphorically, not as a figure of speech. On a neurological level, the organ inside your skull is running threat detection software that was written hundreds of thousands of years ago in a world where something could actually kill you at any moment. The problem is that the hardware never got the update. And now you walk around in a world full of deadlines and traffic and social media, and your ancient alarm system keeps going off for things that cannot hurt you. Let's go back, way back. Picture the savannah about 200,000 years ago. Your ancestors are moving through tall grass. There is no shelter nearby. The wind shifts. Something rustles in the brush to the left. What happens next decides whether your ancestor lives long enough to become your ancestor. A brain that pauses to rationally analyze the sound dies. A brain that reacts first, assumes the worst, and runs or freezes or screams survives. And because survival meant reproduction, that reactive threat-first brain got passed down, and passed down, and passed down again through every generation until it landed in your skull, sitting behind your eyes right now, reading these words. This is what researchers call the negativity bias. And it is not a glitch. It was the most important feature your brain could possibly have. Psychologist Rick Hansen describes it this way. The brain is like Velcro for negative experiences and Teflon for positive ones. Threats stick, safety slides off. Because in the ancestral environment, missing a threat cost you your life. Missing an opportunity just meant you were hungry for a day. The asymmetry was total. So evolution built a brain that errs obsessively, aggressively, exhaustingly on the side of danger. Here is what that looks like inside your head. Deep in the center of your brain sits a small, almond-shaped structure called the amygdala. It is older than language, older than logic. It is, in a very real sense, older than you as a thinking being. The amygdala's only job is to scan everything around you for danger and trigger a response before your conscious mind has any say in the matter. Neuroscientist Joseph Ledoux spent decades mapping what he called the low road of fear. When a signal comes in through your senses, it goes two ways at once. One path goes up to the cortex, your thinking brain, where it gets analyzed rationally, given context, assessed for actual danger. That path is slower. The second path goes straight to the amygdala, bypassing all of that rational processing and triggers a physical alarm response in milliseconds. Your body reacts before your mind understands what it is reacting to. That is why you jumped at the car horn before you knew what the car horn was. That is why your chest tightens before you fully register that your boss just walked into the room. That is why you feel dread when you see a notification on your phone from someone you have a complicated relationship with, even when you have not opened it yet and do not know what it says. The amygdala does not wait for evidence. It acts on pattern. And the pattern it was trained on was ancient, sudden movement, loud noise, the smell of something burning, eye contact held a second too long. These were the signals that preceded death, and the amygdala still treats them exactly that way. Now here is where it gets stranger. Your brain does not just react to real, present threats. It imagines threats. Constantly. There is a name for this too. The default mode network. A system of brain regions that activates whenever you are not focused on a specific task. When you are not actively doing something, your brain is not resting. It is running simulations. It is rehearsing threats. It is replaying past dangers and pre-experiencing future ones. Psychologists Matthew Killingsworth and Daniel Gilbert studied this using a real-time experience sampling app that pinged thousands of people throughout their days and asked what they were thinking and how they felt. Their finding was remarkable and unsettling. People's minds were wandering nearly half the time, and wandering minds were consistently less happy than focused ones, regardless of what they were wandering toward. Your brain defaults to threat rehearsal when left alone, not as a personality flaw. as a feature, because an ancestor who spent quiet moments imagining the leopard that might come tonight was more likely to survive than one who relaxed completely. Anxiety, at its core, is preparation. Worry is your brain trying to protect you. It just cannot tell the difference between a leopard and an unanswered email. This is what makes modern life so exhausting in a way that is hard to explain. You are not weak. You are not broken. You are a survival machine dropped into an environment your hardware was never designed for. The stressors have changed completely. The response system has not. Think about social rejection. For most of human evolutionary history, being cast out of the group was a death sentence. You could not survive alone on the savannah. No shelter, no shared fire, no collective defense against predators. Being rejected by the tribe was functionally identical to being sentenced to die. So your brain treats social pain the same way it treats physical pain. This is not a metaphor. Psychologist Naomi Eisenberger conducted brain imaging studies showing that the same neural regions that light up when you experience physical pain also activate when you experience social rejection. Your brain does not have a separate system for hurt feelings. Social exclusion runs through the pain network because for most of human history, exclusion and death were nearly synonymous. That is why being left out of a meeting feels viscerally awful. That is why public embarrassment can make you want to disappear. That is why a dismissive tone from someone you respect can ruin the rest of your afternoon. Your body is registering a survival threat. Because 100,000 years ago, it was. And your brain keeps a ledger. It remembers. Every embarrassing moment you rerun in the shower. Every slight you replay at 2 a.m. Every time you said the wrong thing in a meeting and spent the next 6 hours mentally drafting what you should have said instead. That is the amygdala curating your threat archive, flagging experiences that looked like social danger, adding them to the pattern library, making sure you do not make that mistake again. This is also why criticism lands harder than compliments. You know this from experience. Someone tells you your work is brilliant and you feel good for a moment. Someone tells you one thing that could be better and you think about it for the rest of the week. Your brain is not being dramatic. It is working exactly as designed. One piece of negative feedback carries ancestrally weighted importance. It might be the thing that saves your life. Every piece of praise is nice, but functionally, it can wait. So what does this mean for you right now? You are carrying an ancient machine inside your skull. It was built for a world of predators and scarcity and tribal politics. It was brilliant in that world. It was the best possible version of a brain for that environment. But you do not live in that environment. You live in a world where most of the things your amygdala flags as lethal are merely uncomfortable, where most of your social exclusions are temporary, where the lion is almost never actually in the grass. The machine is not broken. It is just running the wrong program in the wrong era. And knowing that changes something. Not everything. Your heart will still lurch when you hear a sudden noise. Your chest will still tighten before a difficult conversation. Your brain will still spend its idle moments rehearsing what could go wrong tomorrow. These responses were wired in over hundreds of thousands of years. Knowing about them does not switch them off. But knowing gives you a pause. A tiny, crucial gap between the alarm and your response to the alarm. That gap is where your modern mind lives. That gap is where you get to ask, is this real? Is this now? Or is this old code running in a new world? Tonight, when something startles you, or a notification tightens your chest, or a social interaction replays in your mind long after it should be over, you will know what is actually happening. Your brain felt something rustle in the grass. And for a split second, just like your ancestors on the savannah 200,000 years ago, it decided to survive.